ESIC
Thank you.
Hospital,
I'm very
Ranchi.
much obliged. Thank
Dr.
you very
Kapil
much.
Khanna, clinical cardiologist at Delhi. Dr. Amar Kumar, clinical cardiologist from Ranchi. Dr. Suman, clinical cardiologist from Oman. And Dr. Ravi Gupta, clinical cardiologist from Delhi. Uh, I will be speaking on this topic. So give me a second.
Do- Welcome, Dr. Vineet. Vineet is a senior cardiologist in Ranchi. He is the vice president of Indian Association of Clinical Cardiologists as well as the founder president of Jharkhand IACC. He's a senior member of our association as well as a academician who very frequently takes webinar among us. So welcome, Vineet, and we'll be happy to listen. Thank you.
Thank you so much for such a nice introduction. Well, today we are here to talk on the topic called juggling through the microvascular complications. We begin with an case scenario of an uncontrolled diabetic individual of a 50-year-old male, known diabetes from 8 years, with reduced EGFR of 70. He suffered from ST elevation myocardial infarction about 3 months back, presented with dyspnea, known hypertensive on ACE inhibitor with urinary albumin creatinine ratio of 45, and was implanted a stent. He is presently asymptomatic, but his BMI is a little bit on higher side, more than 30. A1C is also a little higher, more than 8. Fasting blood glucose of 140 and postprandial 285. He is presently on metformin, sulfonylurea, teneligliptin, and enalapril. We can definitely say that he is a type 2 diabetic patient with uncontrolled sugars, and we as clinicians are worried about the coming complications which he may face in the future. What is so worrying about diabetes? Is it the blood sugar level, or is it the complications associated with it, or is it something else? Unfortunately, diabetes is not when it is diagnosed. Diabetes is when it is way beyond diagnosis. Almost 10 years prior to diagnosis, we see the complications starting to take its toll into the body. And why that is happening? Because of reduction in the beta cell function. And that results in insulin resistance, which goes on increasing with time, and insulin secretion goes on decreasing. First, the postprandial blood glucose level tend to increase, followed by fasting blood glucose levels. And all these put together lead to micro and macrovascular complications, which occur almost 5 and 10 years prior to the actual onset or diagnosis of hyperglycemia. And that phase is known as pre-diabetes. So it is a pre-diabetes which we are worried about, because there the complications have already started, and this will lead to the future complications which will be manifested in the patient. So our major concerns are not only the reduction in macro and microvascular complication, also the prevention of heart failure, optimization of various risk factors, which include the A1C levels, the blood pressure, the lipid profile level, and of course, that is all of the above. So what is the advantage? What is the advantage of controlling blood pressure? It has been learned over a period of time that every 1% reduction in A1C tend to reduce the long-term complications of type 2 diabetes. And these numbers are quite significant. More than 40% reduction in diabetic amputations, which may occur due to fatal peripheral blood diseases, that is fatal peripheral arterial diseases. Also, almost 40% reduction in microvascular complication in terms of nephropathy and retinopathy. There's more than 10% reduction in stroke, and more than 10% reduction, almost 15% reduction in myocardial ischemia and infarction. Overall, there is reduction by more than 20% in terms of mortality, which occurs due to diabetes. And this is occurring with each 1% reduction of A1C. So that's a significant benefit which we get when we talk about reduction in hyperglycemic levels in an individual. So today we are focusing on microvascular complication, a Steno-2 trial, which was followed up for 21 years, and they have shown that all-cause mortality reduces by almost 55%, the cardiovascular mortality by 38%, the cardiovascular events also reduced by 55%, the retinopathy progression reduces by 67%, which is a big number. Similarly, the autonomic neuropathy also reduces by 60%, and there's significant reduction in microalbuminuria. So these are the various complications, the markers which are associated with uncontrolled diabetes, which are being taken care of by reduction in A1C levels. The cardiorenal side effects which is associated with type 2 diabetes, and amongst these various mortalities, the cardiorenal mortality is probably the highest. The all-cause mortality due to cardiorenal diseases is almost three times than a non-diabetic patient, whereas heart failure is just 2 times, and similarly for isolated CKD. The stroke is also less than 2% associated with PAD and myocardial infarction. These three are less than 2%, almost 1.5 times than in normal individual. Coming to cardiovascular death, also we see that cardiovascular death due to cardiorenal diseases in diabetic patient is almost 3.5 times than the normal population in diabetic patient. Heart failure is also 2.5 times, and CKD is less than 2 times. So we see that a combination of renal problem and cardiac problem is a deadly combination. It increases the death and mortality multifold time in comparison to a non-diabetic patient when compared with diabetic patient. So what are the things which we need to take care in management of diabetes? The vascular protection includes the management of A1C levels. We want HbA1c to be less than 7, blood pressure to be less than 130 by 80 millimeters of mercury. The LDL level should be also reduced to 2 millimoles, and it should be at least 50% reduction than the baseline. What are the medicines which we use to protect the heart? We should use either ACE or ARB. The data has shown that these should not be co-prescribed. Along with the statin, the antiplatelet agents, the aspirin or the clopidogrel, the newer anti-diabetic agents, the SGLT2 inhibitors or GLP-1 receptor agonists, specifically in those type 2 patients which are known to have cardiovascular disease and target. Data also shown that these drugs, SGLT2 inhibitors, tend to reduce these complications when used earlier in the management of diabetes. Not to forget that exercise and healthy eating is the most important thing in management of diabetes. Smoking cessation, and as we talked in previous talk, it is not only the smoking. Tobacco uses is in any form is equally harmful. So we need to avoid these. Compare SGLT2 inhibitors, the DPP4 inhibitors, and GLP-1 receptor agonists. We see definite reduction in A1C levels, which is more with SGLT2 and GLP-1. The weight loss is also seen with SGLT2 and GLP-1, whereas DPP4 are weight neutral. Hypoglycemia is rare with all three, probably because they are not working on beta cells. They are having different mode of action. Therefore, hypoglycemia is rare with these drugs. The special benefit of SGLT2 inhibitors over others is that it also takes care of the blood pressure, probably due to the volume depletion, along with the management of HbA1c levels and the fasting PP levels. Coming to the metabolic efficacy of this particular drug, the A1C levels reduced by almost 0.7%, whereas if we compare with the standard medical therapy, it reduces only by 0.6%. If we compare these two, there's almost 2 kg reduction in weight and systolic and diastolic blood pressure also reduces by 4 and 2 millimeters respectively. The various guidelines, either from ADA or European guidelines, also suggest that those patients who are at high risk in terms of atherosclerotic cardiovascular diseases, they should either be put on GLP-1 receptor agonists and or SGLT2 inhibitors. If the patient is heart failure or known CKD, SGLT2 is preferred over GLP-1 receptor agonist. And if eGFR is lesser, we or SGLT2 is not being tolerated or it is contraindicated, then only we can go to GLP-1 receptor agonist. Here, I would like to point one more thing. Though both these drugs are costly, but GLP-1 receptor agonists are much more costlier in comparison to SGLT2 inhibitors. The DECLARE trial, which was done on more than 17,000 patients, and patients were those who were having A1C level of more than 6.5 and less than 12, in an age group of more than 40 with established cardiovascular disease, in males of more than 55 and females more than 60 with at least one CV risk factor, were randomized either to placebo or dapagliflozin of 10 milligram, along with the other standard medical care of therapy which was being used by the physicians. It was seen over a follow-up period of more than 4 years. That event was seen in just 1390 patients. The data which we concentrated in this particular trial was there was either more than 40% reduction in eGFR, or the eGFR reduced by less than 60, or there was end-stage renal disease or death due to renal causes, or acute renal injury or symptoms of volume depletion. These were the data which we're trying to study. And in all these situations, we find that the uses of SGLT2 inhibitors was much beneficial, as we see that the dots are on the left side of the vertical bar. This suggests that uses of dapagliflozin has benefited in all these terms. That is, there was no reduction in eGFR, there was no acute renal injury when this particular drug was initiated in the management of diabetes in such patients. The cardiorenal, the data also showed that the CV risk factors, what were the numbers which we treated? If we treated 38 patients, there was significant reduction in major adverse cardiovascular events, the cardiovascular diseases, the hospitalization for heart failure, and the renal complications. This is not only beneficial in patients with primary MI, but also in older MI. In all these patients, major adverse cardiovascular events was reduced. Those patients who had atherosclerotic cardiovascular diseases but no MI also benefited in terms of reduction in heart failure and renal impairment. We have good data now on this particular molecule with more than 20 lakh patients with more than 6 crore patient days on therapy. We have 30 phase 2B and 3 clinical trials and DAPA care program ongoing on more than 30,000 patients, which is supported by real world data also in being approved in almost 100 countries, which suggests that yes, the SGLT2 inhibitors, of which dapagliflozin is the drug of choice and started early in the management of diabetes, will be definitely beneficial in prevention of micro and macrovascular complications of diabetes. With that, I would like to end my talk, and if any questions, you are most welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vineet. It was indeed a wonderful presentation. We have almost touched all the major points. And what's your take on diabetes in heart failure patients? And in such patients, do you prefer some particular drug?
In the present scenario, in patients who are known diabetic and heart failure, I guess along with the standard medical therapy of cardiac drugs, SGLT2 inhibitor will be a good choice because probably the volume depletion is one of the most important thing which happens with SGLT2 inhibitors. It takes care of not only the blood sugar level, but also it reduces the preload on the myocardium, and probably that is one of the most important cause for this benefit which we see with this particular drug in heart failure patients, which tend to reduce the hospitalization for heart failure, as well as there's symptomatic benefit in such patients.
Exactly. Dr. Kapil and Dr. Shafiq, any questions? You should unmute your mic, please.
Such a wonderful talk given by Dr. Vineet in such a small while, a crisp information regarding the use of SGLT2 inhibitors in cardiac prevention. And as we all know, they have their very good role in CVD in a primary prevention. It is always advisable to start as soon as possible to start SGLT2 inhibitors. Really, Dr. Jagnani, you have really given a good and crisp information, and it's a good, nice talk. Thank you, Dr. Vinny.
Dr. Shafiq, you have any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Vinay. It was excellent presentation. I would like to know about, this like drugs are very costly nowadays. So how the affordability problem is there for the Indian patients. So which brand do you suggest? Is there any like with a low cost drug which has come into the market?
If we compare the cost in comparison to the cost of hospitalization for heart failure, I guess if we compare in that way, probably the drug would not feel like costly. I do not disagree with you that it is a costly drug, but if we compare this particular aspect, we'll find it pocket friendly. If you are indicating at some of the newer drugs which are more economical in terms of SGLT2 inhibitors, there may be class effect. I do not disagree, but unfortunately, we do not have any CVOT data with those drugs. So we are not very confident that should we use those drugs or should we not. So that is one inhibition in using the more economical ones. So that is one issue with this particular thing.
Dr. Vinit, there's a question from Dr. Rahul Madan. Which SGLT inhibitor is better?
I would like to repeat my answer, which we gave in the last session. There are three types of salt: the common salt, the black salt, and then Sinha Namak, the rock salt. A good cook knows when to use which salt. I guess that answers the question to Dr. Rahul Madan.
Okay, there is one more question. Do you think SGLT inhibitor may be used in patients of heart failure in non-diabetic patients as well?
The data about this is in pipeline. There have been some unconfirmed data which suggest that yes, it can be used, but the data is yet to be published. Probably in the coming near future, we will be able to use the SGLT2 inhibitor even in those patients who are non-diabetic.
Because SGLT2 inhibitors don't cause hypoglycemia, right?
That is why probably this is going to be used. That is the reason.
Yeah.
Now, just to add to this thing, there's a talk also. There's some, can it be used for weight reduction also in non-diabetic patient? Now, this is something which should not be done, but this thought process is also moving. So that should be avoided. This is a drug which should be managed, used in diabetic patients as of now. But I guess in near future, we are going to use in non-diabetic patients of heart failure also. We'll have sufficient data for that.
Okay, thank you.
I have read somewhere that.
Yeah, Dr.
Hello.
Manav, go ahead. Dr. Manav, go ahead.
I have read somewhere that empagliflozin is better than others in heart failure patients. I don't know reason, but I have read it somewhere.
I guess Dr. Chabra is here. He can comment on this. He's a diabetologist at Ranchi.
Dr. Chabra, please unmute your mic. Please unmute your mic. Dr. Chabra, please unmute your mic. We cannot hear. Please unmute.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are
Yeah.
audible now.
That was a wonderful talk, Dr. Vineet, and it was very enlightening. And on a holiday, to hear about a drug which is doing wonders to our patient in terms of extra glycemic benefit, it was very nice to hear. Now, I have few comments to make, 2 or 3 comments to make. All the SGLT2 inhibitors have a class effect in terms of reduction of heart failure. As far as MACE is concerned, well, of course, ertugliflozin did not pass that test. Depa-Cana did. EMPA has its advantages over 3-point MACE and all cause CV mortality as well. Now, coming to the cheaper SGLT2 inhibitors which are available in the market right now, remogliflozin is a wonderful drug doing wonders to most of our patients. But if we look at the class effects, I think we can use remogliflozin very easily to all our patients who require a better euglycemic status. And if the patient has preponderance of CVD problems, or if the patient has CKD stage 2, stage 3, A, B, up to eGFR of 45, we can use all the SGLT2 inhibitors. But after the CREDENCE trial, canagliflozin has shown some wonderful advantages, and Cana can also be used up to eGFR of 30. And please remember, whenever we start an SGLT2 inhibitor to our patient, the eGFR goes down by after few, and then the eGFR stabilizes. So whenever you start an SGLT2 inhibitor to a CKD patient, the eGFR might go down for few weeks, but then again it stabilizes, and we see the prolonged beneficial effect of this drug in long term, for a long period of time. Another fact which we should all remember, why we are not using SGLT2 inhibitors in CKD stage 4 and 5, because once the GFR goes below 40 or below 30, the efficacy of this drug in terms of anti-hyperglycemic agent reduces, because we need a good eGFR for SGLT2 inhibitors to act. We need a good eGFR for SGLT2 inhibitors to act. I did not get the last question. I could not hear the last question somebody was asking. If we can repeat, please.
Yes, sir. I was asking which among these all drugs, SGLT2 inhibitors, is I think EMPA is considered to be better for heart failure patients.
Yeah. If you ask me personally, because it's a forum, we should not be naming the products. But considering all the SGLT2 inhibitors which are available in the market, EMPA has shown the maximum benefit in terms of heart failure and 3-point MACE. DEPA, after the DEPA-HF study, dapagliflozin is equally efficacious in 10 milligram dose, and it shows a good benefit in heart failure patient. After CREDENCE, Cana shows a very good benefit in CKD patients. And I'd like to inform the audience and respectable doctors sitting there that the DEPA CKD trial, which was on, has been prematurely stopped because they could attain the beneficial effect. That trial which was on DEPA CKD, where we were using dapagliflozin in CKD patient, that is called off prematurely because they could achieve the endpoints, very positive endpoints, and the paper will be published very soon. So DEPA again comes in league with canagliflozin in CKD patients as well. So if you ask me a personal question, which SGLT2 inhibitors I use, well, if there is heart failure, NYHA classification 1, 2, or 3 maybe, I go for empagliflozin. If there is slight CKD component also coming in, I go for DEPA or Cana. If the patient doesn't have these two, I give them the advantage of gliflozin, which works wonderfully.
Sir, do they work in type 1 diabetes?
No, there is no data to suggest that we can use SGLT2 inhibitors in type 1 diabetic patients. But if you look at the mechanism of action of this drug, it inhibits the SGLT2 enzyme at first part of the PCT, and it inhibits the deabsorption of glucose. So it's a very different mechanism by which, so there is no harm in trying this drug in type 1 diabetic, but there is no recommendation, no protocol-based recommendation from any organization till now. Same goes true with DPP4 inhibitor also. DPP4 inhibitor is a good anti-glucagon agent. Is a good anti-glucagon agent. So some of the diabetologists and endocrinologists throughout India are using DPP4 inhibitors in type 1 diabetic also. But there are elderly type 1 diabetics because of his anti-glucagon effect. But again, I repeat, there is no recommendation from any good organization like ADA or ESA to use these drugs in type 1 diabetics as of yet.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Guess we can move on the next session. Any more comments? Any more questions? So we'll move on the next session. We have little bit change. Sorry, Dr. Chabra sir. Little bit change. Dr. Manoj is on way. He is little bit stuck. In the meantime, we'll go with next session. I'm sorry, Doctor.
What time do we start?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just what I'll be finishing my clinic in half an hour to 1 hour. So what time we'll go with Dr. Manoj? Will it be
I
around
guess,
3 o'clock?
I'll call you up, Doctor Saab.
Yeah, I'm with my patient. There are some patients. I just finish it off, and I'll be
And
free
thank
by
you so much.
After that,
Thank you
Thanks
so
a lot.
much, Doctor. Thank you so much. We would like to felicitate our chairpersons, Dr. Sashi Sinha, Aryan.
Thank you, Dr. Shashi and other chairpersons, Dr. Kapil, Dr. Ravi Gupta, and Dr. Amit. And finally, Dr. Vineet Jagnani. Thank you very much for a wonderful talk. Let's move to the next talk. Over to Dr. Vineet. Dr. Ravi Gupta.